Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss the Spongebob movie, Sponge on the Road. Or Run, excuse me. I always get the title confused. Featuring the voices of Tom Kenny, Aquafina, Matt Berry, Clancy Brown, Roger Bumpass, Bill Fagerbacke, Carolyn Lawrence, Mr. Lawrence, with special appearances by Danny Trejo, Snoop Dogg, and Keanu Reeves, and directed by Tim Hill. Now, I gotta say, am I excited about this animation? Before we ever get the movie itself, I think I will just get into it right now. We go under the ocean near an island in a small town called Bikini Bottom, where we meet SpongeBob SquarePants, who loves his pet snail Gary, who's adorable. I didn't bring him up in the other two movies when he says meow like a cat. And they spend a lot of time together, and the soundtrack sounded very distracting. I mean, I get some of the songs are what the scenes are about, but it honestly felt very distracting. While at work at the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob is the griller, Squidward Tentacles is the cashier, and Mr. Krabs loves money. But I'm sure those of you that have watched the show have seen it and know about that. And Plankton tries to steal the formula of the Krabby Patty recipe. Sandy Squirrel invents a robot knight called Otto, who's voiced by Aquafina, as she shows Mr. Krabs and takes it at first, but throws it in the recyclable. In Plankton's restaurant, the Chum Bucket, and Plankton's computer wife Karen takes Otto home with them. Plankton tries to steal the Krabby Patty formula and is almost successful until SpongeBob comes in the back for his keys and Plankton turns into fries. That was kind of clever. And I don't like the animation style in this movie because it feels claymated, which could be good for some movies, but here I can go to the back to the second film's animation style. I could back that one up more than this one. I'm not going to lie to you. King Poseidon is worried about his face getting wrinkled and covers it up with the snail goo. And the next day, SpongeBob comes home from work and finds Gary missing, and we flashback of how SpongeBob and Gary met in Camp Coral. And every single time we go back to Camp Coral, there's things I don't particularly remember from the TV show, nor do I like the choices they make in those scenes. And it makes me upset, which I'll get to a little later. SpongeBob and his best friend Patrick comes with him to the city of Atlantic City where Poseidon lives, and they don't have a car until Plankton shows up with the car with Otto driving, and I'm like my grandmother in the first film. I forgot to tell you in the first one. I took my grandmother to the first one and she got restless after 30 minutes. And that's what happened to me here at this movie. The same problem is happening with me. But don't get me wrong, it's completely harmless for kids, but I'm getting restless at this point. Mr. Krabs has a mob of customers while SpongeBob is missing, and I can't believe I'm acting like my grandmother did in the first film, too. And I'm the fan of SpongeBob, the TV show, I'll be honest. SpongeBob and Patrick are dreaming of showing up at the salon and meet Sage, who's being portrayed by Keanu Reeves. And here's the best thing about this movie, honestly. As they go inside the salon and see a bunch of ghosts called zombies, I guess they're calling them, where they're being held captive by El Diablo, who's portrayed by Danny Trejo. And they sing a song with a gambler being portrayed by Snoop Dogg, while SpongeBob and Patrick dances their booties off until El Diablo shows up and holds SpongeBob and Patrick captive until El Diablo lets them out and they pull a curtain and burn El Diablo into ashes and free the prisoners into the heavens, and they finally wake up from the dream and they're back in the bottom and find Sage in the car, and they see Gary is being rubbed by King Poseidon. Meanwhile, Mr. Krabs is depressed while Plankton wants to take the formula and feels bad about it at the same time because Mr. Krabs is giving up the Krusty Krab, which doesn't feel right. SpongeBob and Patrick arrive at the city of Atlantic City Thanks to Sage and Otto, they go inside, and it's like a casino where they get wasted. And Ricky Martin is playing in the background. And again, the soundtrack is very distracting. And the city reminds me of Las Vegas, where gambling is legal. And the movie is beginning to lose my interest at this point, as it feels like it's taken too long for a 90-minute movie. They go to King Poseidon's palace and enter and find King Poseidon, with Gary as King Poseidon calls him Fred. And I did feel sort of bad for Gary, as SpongeBob and Patrick get arrested and executed in the next day. And Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and Squidward see the story on the TV, and Plankton tags along of what he did to Gary. SpongeBob and Patrick and ride in a Krabby Patty car that was introduced in the first movie. All right, moving on. And this isn't working for me, as I'm bored at this point. SpongeBob and Patrick are sitting in a prison cell until they bring up the challenge coin Sage gave them, as they wasted it the night before, and Patrick switches prison cells, and I thought out loud, why can't you just escape from there? Because the door opens and Patrick switches just, it bugged me so stinking badly. King Poseidon orders SpongeBob and Patrick to get executed. It's his execution day, and Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and Squidward and Plankton sneak around while the show goes on, and it almost gets executed by Lamont, until Sandy interrupts the execution by telling the court that she and SpongeBob met at Camp Coral. And this made me very upset, because I remember SpongeBob and Sandy meeting on one of the very early episodes of the TV show. And it wasn't when they were kids at a Camp Coral. That bugged me so badly. And same goes to the other stories, and let me talk about them. This one made sense, sort of, where Patrick met SpongeBob at Camp Coral as he was homesick, and SpongeBob was there for him as a friend, and we never knew that how they met to begin with. Squidward was always jealous of SpongeBob and Patrick after they win a trophy at a talent show, and both SpongeBob and Patrick give him their trophy, and gives Squidward his clarinet. And I thought they first met as neighbors, and he didn't like him from day one, but this one sort of made sense. Mr. Krabs was encouraged by SpongeBob that he should open his own restaurant, and I thought he was hired in one of the original episodes in the early days as when they first met. And this one pretty much bugged the daylights out of me. Plankton, Mr. Krabs, and the gang distract King Poseidon by letting SpongeBob and Patrick out with Gary with the signature song, while Squidward does his booty dance I'm completely aware of, and I don't remember which episode that was, but they escape and disguise themselves as a knight and fight in the body of, and Squidward is the only one who didn't escape the knight's body, as he falls a long way down, but survives, and Otto almost had them in the car. As Otto takes off, King Poseidon is entertained by the show, and he asks SpongeBob to give the snail back. And Sage tells SpongeBob courage is in the inside, and gives a speech about friends, and King Poseidon, as it turns out, doesn't have any friends. And SpongeBob feels bad for him that he'll be his friend, and looks don't matter, and what his inside looks like is the best, and reveals himself as an old fat man, I'll say, and tells him he can keep Gary and frees the other snails, and SpongeBob keeps a few and others keep them, and the climax is harmless, but unfortunately it was not the movie I was wanting from a SpongeBob movie. But I like it. But I like the in memory of Steven Hillenburg, who was the creator of the show, and we get the end theme from the show. It has a nice tribute to him. I mean, I'm not going to lie there. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 3.9 out of 10. I was let down by this movie as I got restless after the first 30 minutes. It is harmless for the kids, as it wasn't the SpongeBob movie I particularly wanted. I didn't care for the animation as much as the first two films, as I would go back to the second film, in my opinion, anyways. The soundtrack was pretty distracting at times, and I just couldn't focus on the movie. And there were times the movie bugged me half to death with the flashbacks to end. But to end on a positive note, I liked the in memory of Steven Hillenberger, who's the creator of the TV show, as the theme song comes on, and Keanu Reeves as Sage was the best character in the movie, in my opinion. So, pretty harmless for kids, I'll just say that much. And I would like to thank you guys for joining me for the SpongeBob retrospective. And until, I don't know if we'll ever get another one, but until then, ah!